Was Kamala Harris really Joe Biden's border czar, or is that just a lie that a lot of people believe? Let's look into it. This is the claim that a lot of people are making on the right, including Donald Trump. They're saying that Kamala Harris was the border czar, she was there to deal with illegal immigration, and she was put in charge of stopping illegal immigration. But is that really true? PolitiFact looked into it and they said it's mostly false. I'm going to break down why I agree that it is mostly false. Back in 2021, Joe Biden tasked Kamala Harris with looking at three countries that make up what we call the Northern Triangle. That's Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. She was tasked with looking at the root causes that make people leave those countries and come to America. Specifically, she was focused on economic struggle, food insecurity, corruption, and violence. She wasn't tasked with specifically solving those problems. Her task was really to investigate the root causes of those issues and then provide as much support and guidance as we could. But these aren't our countries. We don't have direct influence over what they do. We can only attempt to influence it. And just to make it crystal clear, she did not have any task assigned to her that had to do with the Mexican border or anything to do with overall looking at illegal immigration. That job was actually this guy's, Alejandro Mayorkas, who is the Homeland Security Secretary for Joe Biden in his cabinet. He's been impeached by Republicans in Congress. He's been criticized for how he's done his job. We can make a totally separate video on that where I'm sure we could find a lot of common ground if you're a Republican, but we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about Kamala Harris's role here. Okay, so who really came up with this term border czar? Because it wasn't Joe Biden. It was actually this guy, Steve Scalise, the Republican congressman from Louisiana, and this guy, Greg Abbott, the Republican governor of Texas. These two guys did this because they wanted to paint the Biden administration as incompetent on the immigration issue by saying Kamala Harris is the one in charge of the border and she hasn't even gone there. That was their whole message. But the truth is, Harris wasn't in charge of the border, so she didn't really need to go there for any particular reason. It didn't make any sense. But for them, it didn't matter. This was the context they needed to create a lie that was plausible and easy to digest and easy to proliferate. And that's exactly what happened. Okay, so we've contextualized this claim, but let's do something else. Let's take a look at how Kamala Harris actually did with the job she was actually assigned. She actually did really well. $5.2 billion were secured in private equity investments in these countries. You had 70,000 new jobs. You had, I believe, around 4 million people getting access to the internet that didn't have it before, and you had 1 million people get job training. And most importantly, border crossings from these countries dropped while the migrant surge happened. So, coming full circle and revisiting the claim, is it true that Kamala Harris was put in charge of stopping illegal immigration? No. It's mostly false because yes, Kamala Harris did have an element involved in this entire thing, but it was really siloed into 3 specific countries where she did a pretty good job. So in the end, I'm going to quote how PolitiFact summed it up. They said, while it contains an element of truth, there are critical elements of context that are being left out that would give a different impression. Sounds about right. I just want to end this by saying that I plan on making a series out of these, not just border crossings, but any sort of like improperly contextualized claim from either side that is going to break down the origins of that lack of context and why that lie was broken down the way that it was, just like I did in this video. So I have a few ideas, but I want to hear from you guys too. Put in the comments if there's anything that you'd like me to break down that you think is improperly contextualized and a lie, and it's from the left or the right. I don't care. I just want to break down the truth.